Hello gamers, welcome to Game Recaps. In this video, I will discuss the storyline of Saiko No Sutoka, a horror survival game where you, as a protagonist, must escape and avoid the crazy Yandere girl, Saiko Chan, who wants you dead. Yandere is a Japanese archetype used to define a character whose love, admiration, and devotion are so strong that it is expressed as an excessive obsession and possessiveness. Saiko No Sutoka or Psycho Stalker was developed and published by Habupain and released on September 6, 2020, for the PC platform. In this game, we will act as the protagonist named Akira, who becomes the love interest of a Yandere girl named Seiko. What is the storyline of this horror game like? Will Akira be able to save himself from Seiko? Let's find out in Saiko No Sutoka. At the beginning of the game, we will be shown a young man named Akira who is involved in a conversation with his best friend, Shinji, discussing a girl named Seiko. Seiko is one of the juniors at their school and is by no means a standout student at school. Akira only met Seiko once in an accidental incident, where at that time, she fell on the stairs and Akira came to help her. The incident was only considered a typical incident by him. However, Seiko, who apparently has a feeling of love for her senpai Akira, was so excited, because she had been waiting to be that close to him for a long time. Since that incident, Seiko became more and more obsessed with Akira, and she started stalking him often and taking photos of him without his permission. He noticed her presence, which gradually made him more restless and uncomfortable. After hearing his best friend's complaints, Shinji, who initially kept teasing him and didn't take him seriously, decided to help him. After school, Shinji then met Seiko and told her about Akira, who was very uncomfortable with her actions that continued to stalk him. He also asked her to stay away from Akira. It didn't stop there. Shinji also humiliated her in front of the other students, and mocked her as a strange girl before finally leaving her. Seiko stood in front of the shoe locker, holding back the shame blended together with anger when she found out that her struggle all this time to get Akira's love turned out to be in vain. However, Seiko didn't just give up. After being humiliated in front of many people, Seiko, a shy, quiet girl with a tragic past, begins to experience symptoms of DID, dissociative identity disorder, a mental disorder in which a person has multiple personalities. This mental disorder makes her emotions fall apart. Seiko holds a grudge against Shinji because she thinks he is an obstacle to getting Akira. As time goes by, her consciousness begins to be taken over by her other self, namely herself, who is a psychopath. Now she has really become a psycho. Seiko then set up a plan, deciding the exact day when there was no activity, and the school building was completely empty. When that day finally comes, Seiko then captures Akira. On another day, Shinji then comes to school to look for Akira, who is rumored to be missing. Arriving at school, he is greeted by Seiko, who tells him that she knows Akira's location. She then asked him to follow her. Shinji, who did not notice any suspicious and did not suspect Seiko, followed her through the school building to find Akira, who turned out to be unconscious in a locker. She told him that Akira needed help immediately and then asked Shinji to go to the school's clinic and look for medicine. Shinji also obeyed Seiko's request. After taking the key given by her, he rushed to the infirmary to get the first aid kit and help Akira. But when he got there, a glass tube filled with poison gas was thrown at him and immediately made him difficult to breathe before finally collapsing unconsciously right in front of Seiko, who had locked the room. That night, Akira wakes up tied to a chair, and right in front of him, Seiko stands there and expresses her feelings for him, where she says that she really loves him. She then explained that she would not hurt her beloved senior, but her other self would not hesitate to hurt him or anyone who intended to get in her way. After explaining everything, Seiko tells Akira that she won't let him drop out of school before her other self takes over her body and consciousness, and plans to kill Shinji. She then left him and rushed to the clinic. At the same time, Shinji, who finally woke up from his unconsciousness, found that his body had been tied to the bed. He tried his best to untie the bonds in his hands and feet, However, before he managed to untie the bond, Saiko rushed into the room and approached him with a knife in her hand. Saiko also began to enjoy the frightened look on Shinji's face. After seeing the fear in his eyes, she brutally killed him. Hearing Shinji's screams, Akira immediately escaped and tried to reach the main exit. However, since the main exit was locked, he had to first find the right key around there. However, in the middle of the search, he realized that Saiko was following him and trying to kill him, so he had to avoid her while looking for the key to the main exit. After searching all areas of the school and not being able to find the key at all, he then realized that the key to the exit he wanted must be in her hands. Therefore, Akira started using his brains to get the key from Saiko without getting himself killed. After that, he accidentally finds her diary on the table, a diary filled with pictures of her feelings for him, where she really loves him. The pages of Saiko's diary are spread at various points in the school building. Some time ago, Shinji humiliated Saiko in front of the other students by spreading the contents of her diary. So Akira is now trying to convince her to give him the key to the main exit by first collecting her diaries spread throughout the school area. After successfully collecting all the sheets, Akira handed the diary to Saiko, which instantly calmed her. She then assumed that he really cared about her, and he said yes. In return for his concern for her, she gave him the locker's passcode where she had hidden the key to the main exit. After getting the passcode, Akira immediately rushed to open the locker, took the key, and then ran as fast as possible towards the main exit. Immediately, Saiko, who realized that she had been betrayed by him, felt very disappointed and angry and then chased him. However, Akira had already reached the main exit, opened the door, and managed to get out of there before finally locking the door from the outside so that Saiko could no longer follow him. But she didn't stop just like that. She then broke the door's glass and tried to get there. However, the piece of broken glass pierced Saiko's stomach and killed her, so Akira finally managed to save himself and rushed to leave the school area. That is the first ending of the game Saiko no Sutoka, which is probably the canon ending. Because in Nightmare mode, which will later be used as a sequel, there are visible marks of broken glass on Saiko's body. After discussing the plot, now I will discuss the various endings that can be found in this game. In Yandere mode, we will use Shinji's viewpoint, who decides to go to school looking for Akira. In the previous ending, we found that Saiko killed Shinji after following her request to go to the clinic, where he was then unconscious and held before being brutally murdered. However, at the ending this time, Shinji suspected Saiko and thought that something was wrong, then decided to steal the key to the main exit hanging on her back skirt. This then made her very angry, but he finally managed to save himself and got out of the school. At least before a flower pot fell right on top of Shinji's head, resulting in a concussion and instantly killing him. The flower pot was thrown by Saiko from the second floor. In easy and normal mode, we will use Akira's point of view. Ending murdered can be obtained if he continues to be caught by Saiko. After being hit by her attacks at least twice, the injured Akira is taken to the principal's office and tied to a chair. She then complains that he doesn't care about her feelings by constantly trying to run away from her. After that, she then slit his throat and let him bleed to death. In the other ending, namely Play With Me, when Akira managed to get the locker passcode and took the key to the main exit, but in the end, he was caught again. She then took the key from him and invited him to play, where she then ran to let him chase her. After the two of them were right in front of the main exit, Akira finally managed to snatch the key to the main exit from Saiko's hands, making her very angry and trying to kill him by throttling him. But then, suddenly, she remembered the first meeting between the two of them and instantly came back to her senses. He opened the main exit using the key, leaving her, who slumped in her sorrow. One more mode available in the Saiko no Sutoka game besides Easy Normal and Yandere is Yangire. Yangire is a bonus mode that will act as a story expansion for Akira after all the terrible events he experienced at school ended. The word Yangire has a similar meaning to Yandere. However, if Yandere is driven by love, then Yangire is not caused by anything. Because they have absolutely no feelings and don't care about the consequences of their actions and just want to see chaos, making them far more dangerous than Yandere. In Yangire mode, Akira has to deal with two terrible figures, namely Seiko and Ilisu. Ilisu is another personality of Seiko who is much more cruel and dangerous than her. So all the events experienced by Akira in Yangire mode illustrate the trauma that is still attached to him after experiencing a series of terrible events at school. Even after he managed to get out, he was still unable to forget all the terrible events he had experienced, so he was finally trapped in his own trauma. So, no matter how hard he tried to survive, he would always die horribly. Ilisu cut off his head and threw him out, and his body was cut in half and invited to dance with Seiko and Ilisu. When Akira managed to escape and met the figure of a normal Seiko and then hugged her, he then realized that her normal figure wasn't what he imagined. But it was too late. Akira, who tried to escape, was caught again by Seiko, who then cut off his head and connected his head with her doll's body. That's the whole story and ending in the game Saiko No Sutoka. Pretty scary, isn't it? What do you think? Feel free to write your opinion about the game Saiko No Sutoka in the comments column. Thank you for watching.